Hello, welcome to another Album of Record podcast. I'm Craig, joined as always by Andrew. We have an action-packed, chock-full episode for you. As always, you can find everything we do at albumofrecord.com. We're all over YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. How's it going, Andrew?
It's going pretty good. I am frantically turning off all my alerts because I forgot to do that before the episode. There we go. Now I'm good.
Nobody talks to you during the podcast. It's not allowed.
Well, they don't talk to me anytime, but just in case.
All right, so the grab bag starts with you decided to watch Empire Records. What made you want to watch Empire Records?
I was looking for something to watch. It's one of those things I was in the mood to watch a movie, but I didn't want to watch something I hadn't seen before because I was also doing some work on my laptop, and so I knew like my attention would be divided, and so I thought, well, I just want something that I've watched before. So I was just like flipping through, and I went to Amazon Prime and just to see what movies they had, and it was just one of the ones it suggested. And I thought, wow, I have not seen this movie since I was in high school. I didn't really remember it that well, and so I decided to watch it. And what's funny is I don't remember liking the movie that much when I watched it in high school. Like it was just okay, like nothing special. But I found myself like really enjoying it this time and feeling like it's sort of maybe become a little bit of an underrated movie at this point. But the big thing for me, it was like twofold. Like, well, really, they tie together. But like my big thing was the 90s nostalgia of watching that movie just hit me so hard. Like, I think, like, if you were to ask me what is that movie about, I would say it's about the 90s, life in the 90s, because that movie doesn't have much of a plot. I don't know how well you remember it, but
well, I remember there was the teeny bopper dream guy who visited the store, but I don't remember his name.
Well, he wasn't a teeny bopper. He was an older guy. He used to be. Rex Manning was his name on the show. It was Rex Manning Day. But like really the plot of the show, as best as I could say, or movie, I should say, as best as I can say, is one of the characters was closing the store. The CD, they all worked in a CD store. The night before, he had found something that said that the owner, Joe, was going to sell to Music Town, the conglomerate soulless CD store. And so he decided he needed to save the store. So he took that night's deposits, which he was supposed to take to the bank. And instead he went to Atlantic City and played craps and doubled his money first. And he decided to let it ride. And then he crapped out and lost all of the money. And that's really all of the plot. The rest of the movie is like the fallout of that, but like nothing much really happens with that. And at the end, they just magically throw a surprise party at the thing and everybody shows up and gives them a bunch of money, enough for Joe, the owner, to buy the store. So my point is there's not much of a plot really to it, but like everything that
transported you back in time.
Well, yeah, because a lot does happen in this, but it's all very like 90s coded. Like even just like the whole thought of this, they do show like some vinyl there, but it's a CD store. Like everything is about CDs, and it's really like looking at what life really did feel like in the 90s. And, we've lost a little something today with technology by being always interconnected with everybody wherever you are. I really do feel like you lose a little bit of that community spirit of like having to be there. And you really like remembered what it was like, having a close knit group that always hung out together, and also just the angst of the 90s, like which probably exists still today, but it's just a different kind of angst today. I think today it's a lot more of the pressure of dealing with like social media and some of the things that technology has brought with it, whereas this was a lot more of the pressure of parents and not understanding people at school and feeling out of place, and being undecided about your future. And like there are certain elements that are certainly universal and timeless, but it was all presented in a package that like the music was all just straight 90s, like really good soundtrack actually in that show or movie, excuse me. And I don't know, I just thought it was kind of fun to go back, and it just made me really miss like growing up in the 90s. I think that movie came out in like 95, 96, somewhere around there. So 95. It was like right. Yeah. So like right around the time I was a sophomore, junior in high school. And it just like really like took me back to what that experience was like. And there's good memories and bad memories associated with all that. But it just made me really it made me miss CD stores. Like I really miss music stores a lot. That's something that, for all the advantages that we have in having every piece of music at our fingertips, we lost that feeling of going to a record store and browsing and, perusing and getting to know the people that work there and just all of that. It was really fun to revisit that world. And I thought they actually, like looking back at it now, they did a really good job actually of capturing the essence of like what it was like being young in the 90s.
Makes me want to watch it. I'll probably now force my wife to watch it with me sometime over the holiday weekend.
Yeah, like I'm like, I wouldn't tell anybody like, oh, you got to see it because it's a great movie. Because like I said, there's really not a lot of plot, and it's kind of silly how it all works out in the end. But I don't know, like between the music and just the feeling, the setting, like they did a really good job of capturing the 90s. And I just felt like,
and one of those classic 90s soundtracks.
The 90s is the character. Absolutely. And it's got like Renee Zellweger's in it, Liv Tyler, Ethan Embry is in it. Like there's people that have been in a lot of things, and it was just I forget the actress's name who was the sort of suicidal, angsty teen.
Yeah, I don't even know.
She was in like Prison Break, and she's been in a ton of things. I can't remember what her name is, but anyways, it's worth watching if you remember the 90s well and you think back fondly on it with nostalgia. It's worth checking out.
Well, it's perfect because obviously I remember the 90s, but I don't really remember this movie that well other than Rex Manning Day. And so I'm in.
Yeah, I didn't either. Like I said, I hadn't seen it for sure since I was in high school. I saw it when it came out on video in the 90s. So it's been a very long time.
So next up on the grab bag of topics, we've got Zach Bryan versus John Moreland.
You skipped one. This Week in Turnstile.
Oh, This Week in Turnstile. So go ahead, Andrew. This Week in Turnstile.
All right. Hey, look, we've only got 2 more weeks from, the day this episode airs, 2 weeks until the Turnstile album. So we've only got a couple more of these to do. And then we probably won't talk about the album once it comes out. But
no, we'll skip it altogether.
Yeah. But no, this week, a couple things. We talked last week about their show in Baltimore, and I saw the numbers were in. They estimated 10,000 people were there, and I think they raised $40,000 for healthcare for the homeless. So that was cool. Then they played a show in Los Angeles at the Ukrainian Culture Center, and this is worth checking out. Just finding like a video of it, doesn't matter which one, you don't have to watch the whole show, but just to see like this room that they're in, and it's just a room with like this curved ceiling at the top, and they have it all lit from the back, so the band is projecting shadows of themselves onto the ceilings and the walls, and you can see the crowd as they come up on the stage, and it's one of the most visually stunning shows that you'll see just in how they did it. So that's worth checking out. And then we did get a new Turnstile song this week. Oh my God. Look Out For Me. This is a 7-minute long Turnstile song, which was interesting right off the bat. It's very, very unique Turnstile song. You know, a lot of different elements to this song, and it ends with a long, almost techno, a house style outro. It's really interesting. I said to you on first listen, this was the first of the singles that didn't really grab me. I know you felt a little differently on your first listen, but
yeah,
I've since like grown to really like it. I really love the outro. I love the outro a lot. I think what I don't love about this song is, for the first time, this is the first song that to me truly doesn't feel like a hardcore song at all. Like the guitar riff, like there is a heavy guitar riff at the beginning, but it's not like, to me it sounds like more of a pop punk type guitar riff than a hardcore riff. Like even a song like Seeing Stars, like the chord progression of that, even though it's not like a guitar based song, the chord progression still feels like a hardcore progression. This one to me feels very, very much more poppy, very much like this is them maybe going for a wider audience with a song like this, but that's fine. It's a damn good song. And I just think it's interesting to continue to hear these directions that they're going. I think originally there was maybe a thought that this was just going to be more of Glow On, but I would argue that what we're getting instead is a band that really swung for the fences in terms of trying to do different things on this and present a different sound, still trying to keep it rooted in hardcore as much as they can. But I think like all these songs, I think are going to kill it live too. But yeah, so we got a new Turnstile song.
And see, and I didn't really hear that much of and not to demean the song because I liked it very much. I didn't hear very much of a difference between this and what I come to expect from Turnstile, mostly because I think I focused on the vocals and it just sounded like
the vocals. Yes, the vocals
sounded very much like a lot of other stylings that Turnstile would do, where it comes off really clean on the record, and I just can't wait to hear it all a little bit dirtier and grittier live, because the live vocals are very good, but there definitely is a layer of sheen on it in the studio that's just not there live. And I think it's the reverb to the betterment.
There's more reverb in the studio than there is
in compression live.
Yeah, but yeah, it's, you know, like I said, I don't mean to sound like I'm not, like I love this song. Like I've listened to it so many times, and the video is absolutely incredible.
Well, that was the one thing that you and I have talked about, and in all of these things with Turnstile in the lead up to their record, is that the release schedule, the lead up has basically been impeccable. They've not had a misstep. Everything's been perfect so far.
Yeah. And I like their approach to, like, this is a band that doesn't do a ton of media. Like they do just enough to like whet the appetite, but they still have the mystery, no pun intended, but like, you know, they still keep that mystery about them. They've always been a little bit of a reclusive band when it comes to the media. You know, they did a New York Times piece, which obviously that's a big deal, but you know, there wasn't a ton of substance to that piece, I didn't think. But you know, and that's the way I like it. It's enough to get me excited and want to hear more, but it's not overdoing it. So, well, I predict we're still going to get one more track before, and I think it's going to be track 2. That follow up to Never Enough. I think we're going to hear what that build up is to. That's my prediction. We'll see.
Yep. All right, we got Zach Bryan versus John Moreland, and once again, this is Zach Bryan making the press for his infighting and for kind of all the wrong reasons. But the interesting thing to us is that this has led to him changing a finished album, and changing a track on it.
Yeah, I'll real briefly just touch on the backstory of this, just so people are caught up if they don't know. So Zach Bryan apparently sold some publishing rights.
Let me do this part, and then you can opine about it. John Moreland publicly slammed the $350 million Warner deal and called Zach Bryan an off-brand version of himself. And then Zach Bryan responded by removing a track that they performed together on his Great American Bar Scene.
Yeah. So Memphis the Blues is the name of the song, which was a song I actually really loved. Not everybody did, but I really loved it. Well, what's funny about this is, like, I remember at the time Zach posting videos to his Instagram account of him and John recording the song, and there was no signs of them not getting along and stuff. So I don't know what this is necessarily all about. I would argue that John Moreland actually kind of started this more than Zach Bryan did, by, making his comments about Zach. But anyways, but Zach's response was just kind of very frustrating to me. So he pulled Memphis the Blues off of Great American Bar Scene, as Craig said. So when you go to that album on Spotify, Apple Music, whatever, it's grayed out. You can't listen to it. And this really frustrates me that this can happen, because to me, it was already done. It's a work of art. Like that, albums are sacred to you both. I know you feel the same way. Like, the album is sacred, and that song.
This is some Kanye crap. You don't change something after it's already been released. You don't edit it. You don't change it. And if you do, it's a new version. It's an extra version. You release it separately. But to fundamentally change something because of some beef or whatever, it's utter garbage.
And it's another negative of the streaming world that we live in, that this can even happen, and we've seen, like, and maybe this is, we can debate whether this is for better or not, but we've seen other bands who have had members that, get in trouble with something, and the label pulls the album off of the streaming services. And that's their prerogative, whatever. But, like, it's still, like, that's a work of art that was created. And I feel like it should be up to the consumers whether they want to listen to it or not. Like, Zach could encourage the fans, hey, just skip that song when it gets to there. Let it be up to the fans if we want to listen to it or not. But, it's just the era we live in. And I think the Kanye comparison is actually really good. What was that? The Life of Pablo, the album that he...
No idea. I'm not a Kanye fan.
Yeah, I remember he had an album that he, like, released, and then he, like, added songs and took some songs
only
away,
on
maybe,
Tidal or Apple Music, and he edited tracks, and it's a whole thing. Just don't do that.
I'm not a Kanye fan either, so I don't know the specifics, but I do think it's just a good comparison, because it's a similar situation.
And by the way, if you can sign a deal with Warner Music and cash $350 million for yourself, you should probably do it.
We've got to stop shaming artists for making money, man. Like, I'm just tired of it. Like,
but then again, at a certain point, if you're Zach Bryan and you're making millions and millions and millions of dollars a year already, how much is enough?
Yeah. I don't know. Like, I don't know what he actually sold or what the deal is. So I don't know. I don't the details either. Enough to talk about that. But
maybe music is now like sports, where you don't talk about another man's money.
Yeah. Like, I do kind of feel that way, though. There's always that rule that athletes aren't supposed to talk when their teammate holds out. They're not supposed to criticize them for it. And I don't know. I just didn't like any of this. And, like,
Zach Bryan makes it really hard to be a fan sometimes.
Yes, he does. No question about it. And there were some allegations. So in the follow-up, John Moreland also made some accusations that Zach had made some perhaps racist comments around him or something, things like that. So, there's some other degrees of uncomfortability there. But you just never know what, like, when people start beefing, people say things, and I don't know what's true and what's not. But we talk a lot about separating the art from the artist, and I still like his music, but yeah, it's just been a rough. Zach Bryan has always kind of been this way. That it's sort of Zach Bryan being Zach Bryan, I guess.
He's just very immature.
Yeah. So anyways, that's that.
The Foo Fighters fired Josh Freese, Josh the drummer, who's been their drummer for 2 years since the passing of Taylor Hawkins. He posted on Instagram, a very modern way to tell a story. Josh Freese says, "The Foo Fighters called me Monday night to let me know they've decided to, quote, go in a different direction with their drummer. No reason was given. Regardless, I enjoyed the past 2 years with them, both on and off the stage, and I support whatever they feel is best for the band. In my 40 years of drumming professionally, I've never been let go from a band, so while I'm not angry, just a bit shocked and disappointed. But as most of you know, I've always worked freelance and bounced between bands, so I'm fine. Stay tuned for my top 10 possible reasons Josh got booted from the Foo Fighters list. Josh. I'm just going to say it because everybody's already speculating. It didn't take people very long. Shane Hawkins, Taylor Hawkins' son, is going to be the next drummer of the Foo Fighters. He turns 19 in August. I wouldn't bet against the fact that Josh Freese is in on it.
Oh, that's a good little wrinkle. I
think this is all part of the bit.
Could very well be, because I don't know. Josh Freese isn't fired because of his ability.
No,
he's an excellent drummer that's, played with lots and lots of bands that we like and respect, and I've never heard anybody criticize him for his drumming. So
no,
I don't think that's what it is. And I would imagine that Dave Grohl was pretty aware that this would bring a lot of negative attention to the band. And so you immediately think well, what would be worth bringing this negative attention on the band? And it's well, what if the rug pull is, hey, we've got Taylor Hawkins' son? And then everybody's oh, okay, I get it.
But it's also so obvious that everybody got there in about 10 minutes.
True. So that is true. But it was funny too because I sent you
fan service though, right?
Yeah, but I had sent you that article too that Zach Starkey got fired twice from the Who. He got fired, and he posted some stuff on Instagram about it, and he got fired for apparently playing too loud. And it's you guys hired Zach Starkey, you guys had Keith Moon, what are we talking about here? How can you be drumming too loud for the Who? So then Pete Townsend apparently smoothed everything over, and then he was back in the band, and then a couple weeks later, now he's fired again. So a lot of crazy stuff going on with drummers. And Sean Kinney from Alice in Chains, he's had some emergency, sounds fairly serious medical issues. So Alice in Chains had to cancel their Sonic Temple appearances, and for the time being, I have canceled any of their other shows. So just a lot of drummer news going on out there right now.
Yeah. And now Jerry Cantrell's doing a solo tour. So
yeah,
with Filter. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I was supposed to see Filter. I had tickets to see Filter many years ago, and that was when Richard Patrick checked himself into rehab and had to cancel that tour. I don't remember which album that was for, but so
I saw them on the Title of Record tour, and it was absolutely incredible. Probably the band at their absolute peak, and I saw them at a small club. I think it was Avalon in Boston. It was just a great show.
Do they have any permanent members besides Richard Patrick?
I don't think so.
Yeah, but anyways, yeah.
All right, next up on the list, Sleep Token. The world's biggest metal band, hit number 1 on the Billboard charts. They also got, what's that?
I said Craig ain't lying about them being the biggest metal band in the world.
And they also got one of the most kind of laughable, scathing Pitchfork reviews, a 2.3 for their new album, Even in Arcadia, which is pretty funny. Eli Ennis wrote it. And you and I talked about this one offline, off the podcast, and first of all, it's silly that Pitchfork would even review that record, except that they were looking to dunk on it. I like the record, and I still agree with most of what Eli Ennis said about the record. I like Sleep Token almost in spite of themselves.
Yeah. Did you watch the Fantano review?
No.
He had some pretty scathing remarks for it too. This has become the thing everybody on the internet agrees about, and they all are enjoying kicking Sleep Token right now.
Sleep Token is Nickelback in real time.
Yeah. And I mean, I'll be honest, I tend to agree with what the internet says about it. I do not like this band, but I found myself almost reflexively wanting to stick up for them a little bit, because it's like all these people that are clowning it, it's like clearly Sleep Token is not making music for you. You're not their target audience. So what does it matter? Like, they have a target audience, a very large target audience. And if those people love it and are enjoying it, and it gave, number one album, like, ultimately, like, who cares? Like, I don't understand caring so much, and like trying to get who can get the most brownie points for who can hate this band the most. It's like, I don't know, like, are you really getting any credibility by saying you hate this band? Like, again, it's like, you said it exactly right. It's like, saying that you think Nickelback sucks make you an enlightened music fan, like, or like everybody agrees, like,
Well, and here's the thing that I pointed out on the platform formerly known as Twitter. Pitchfork also reviewed Sabrina Carpenter's Short and Sweet this year, and they gave it an 8.0. And it's just as poppy and shallow and kind of silly as Sleep Token, but because it's a pop record, they can give it an 8.0. But because Sleep Token is a metal band that dresses in masks and everything else, so it would be better if they weren't wearing masks and they had backup dancers and stuff like that. Like, the context matters, and it feels like it is, if other similarly shallow music can get a high rating, then why are we holding them to such a different standard? And I agree the context is different. It's just kind of funny that Pitchfork would take Sabrina Carpenter super seriously and give her an 8.0, which you and I said that's a good record. It probably deserves an 8.0. But then your context on Sleep Token is just way off base if that's your standard.
And I don't know if it's just like the whole, because they're classified as a metal band, which, like, I guess they are. Like, I've never really thought of them as a metal band.
There are whole sections with double bass and screaming, so they're definitely a metal band.
But like, I would say to me they're just more of a rock band with some metal elements thrown in, more so than a pure metal band. But I don't know. You've listened to them a lot more than I have, so I'll defer to you on that. But
and they've one of their biggest songs from the new record is called Caramel. And the lyrics are saccharine and poppy, and that's where I draw the line in the comparison. Not the line. That's where I draw the comparison between somebody like Sabrina Carpenter with espresso, and like, what's the difference between caramel and espresso?
A caramel espresso.
I mean, could it be any more obvious, right?
Yeah. They just go together. But yeah, I don't know. Like, I find this whole discourse kind of just silly. Like, my algorithms just can't stop giving me people bashing Sleep Token. And I'm like, I don't care about this band. Like, I'm not actually going to defend them, but I also, like, to me, it's so uninteresting seeing people who clearly are never going to be Sleep Token fans anyways, like, clowning this band so much. Like, it's just, you were never going to be a fan of them. They're not making music for you, so what difference does it make? Like, we can't react. Like, there are, like, even to your point about Sabrina Carpenter, but like, beyond her, like, there's so many pop bands, there's so many just like safe rock bands that you and I don't care for. And it's like, but they're clearly not all right. So we don't make episodes trying to show how cool we are by, making fun of these rock bands that we don't like. I just don't see the upside in it. I don't see what anybody's gaining or winning by doing it.
Well, you're not much of a Twitter user these days, but you noticed how the author of that review seemed to be really enjoying all the attention from trashing Sleep Token.
Oh yeah, he loves to tell people that he's the guy who gave Sleep Token that negative review.
Yes,
whatever. More power to him.
Sure. Yeah, he's a good reviewer, by the way. I enjoy his takes on lots and lots of other music. So
yeah,
it's fine if he hates Sleep Token.
He's angling for the Turnstile review. I saw him tweet something about that the other day. He was asked on Twitter, he was asking the editors to let him get the Turnstile review. So I bet he gives that better than a 2.3.
Yeah. So let's hit some other new music out there. We had maybe one of the best jokes I've made in years, Arm's Length. There's a whole world out there. They're a Canadian emo band. You compared it to Fall Out Boy, and I said, so you're saying they're Fall Out Boy.
Got to get the accent.
Yeah.
I'll let you talk about this first, because you're more familiar with them than I am.
Yeah, I'm a big fan, especially since I saw them live. They were just incredible live. The energy, the way the songs translate in the live setting is, if you can see that band live, you absolutely should. My first listen was just kind of meh. I kind of liked it, but the more I listened to it, the more I loved it. This album is coded for me. This is the kind of music that I love. It's very much emo, and so it's not a surprise to me that it grew on me. And now I probably like 90% of the record, and I've probably favorited 90% of the tracks on that record. And so your take was a little bit different.
Yeah. So my take is, I think this is a very good album, maybe an excellent album, and I don't like it. And it's for such a niche specific reason. And my thing is, so I love the opening track. I think the opening track is unbelievable.
It's killer.
My absolute favorite song on the album. And then after that, like, you hit this run of songs that to me just all sound like Senses Fail. Like, that's all I can hear. And I can't get through this album without like just this really strong urge to stop listening to Arm's Length and put on Let It Enfold You and listen to that instead. And that's probably because of just how much I loved that Senses Fail album and listened to it so much. It's so near and dear to me and familiar to me. And when I hear like the chorus in the second track, like that vocal melody feels so identical to me to like Lady in the Blue Dress, like the chorus in that one. And I just can't unhear that. And it's just been a struggle with me. And there are a lot of very samey songs on this album. Like, I'm sure if you listen to it a lot, like you start to hear like the differences bubble to the surface, and that happens with albums a lot, but like as somebody who's not as invested in them as you are, I did like their previous album. I know you had turned me on to that when that album came out, and I did like it quite a bit, and I was very excited for this album, don't get me wrong. And like I said, I think it's very good. Like, I can even say I think it's probably excellent. I just don't particularly like it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it happens to us a couple times a year at least, where we'll listen to something and we'll be able to hear the quality, but it just doesn't speak to me as an individual.
Yeah.
And at certain times, I'm going to have one that I love that just doesn't speak to you, and vice versa. Sleep Token aside.
Yeah, right, for sure. But yeah, no, and so like I'm not gonna say anything bad about this album, like, at all. And I was looking forward to it. I really was. Like, I went into this wanting to love it. It just didn't click with me in that way. And I don't know. I'm gonna listen to it some more times. There's like 3 songs on it, I would say, that what was it, The Wound, is that
Yeah,
I really liked that song a lot. Like, some of the stuff when they started bringing in, like, you could hear like banjo in there and stuff, like, once they started getting a little more textural with it, I liked some of that stuff in the middle of the album. So there's things I like about it for sure.
And I think it finishes great too. Morning Person is a great track to end it.
Yeah. So, I'm not out on it yet. Like, it's going to get some more listens for me.
You're not going to get a 2.3 in
will
Pittsburgh.
not get a 2.3 for me. No.
and that's really, the joke is always, I give it a 7. Some of my favorite tech podcasts. They've banned the 7 review for gadgets because it's just such a cop out. But there's a lot of music that it's like I got to give it a 7 because I can hear the quality, but it's not gonna hit for me.
It's like when we ranked every band and we had the This Is Rock category, and that ended up just becoming our like just default, like just put it there if we don't know what to do with it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it ended up totally not meaning what it meant. We just threw it in. We were like, we'll just throw it in there.
All right, we're already at 35 minutes, so we're going to skip some of the records here, but we have to talk about Psychedelic Porn Crumpets, one of the worst band names in the history of music. This is a spaced out psych rock prog band from Perth, and I don't know how they came across my algorithm, but it came across and I had to listen to them. I liked something from their past. I don't know if it was their last record. And so when this one came up, it hit my radar, and what a cool record.
Yeah. So of course they're Australian. Like I feel like that with a band name like that, you almost have to be Australian. Yeah. What's funny to me about this album is like there is it's a hard album to describe what exactly it is because it's all over the place. I honestly think that this is, whereas like Queens of the Stone Age are stoner rock, this is if Queens of the Stone Age were a psych/math rock band. That's what I hear in this. Like I hear a lot of elements of where Queens of the Stone Age can be really heavy despite having that like desert stoner rock vibe, but they get into like a heavier element. And these guys, like, they sound heavy without actually being heavy, if that makes sense. And I love this album. I was so happy you turned this on to me, and I'll admit when you told me to listen to it, and this was before the album, they did like a pre-release EP or whatever, and you told me to listen to it, and between the name and the album cover, I was like, this is dumb. Like, there's no way I'm going to like this.
It's a claymation figure on the album cover.
It looks like it could be a Primus album cover.
It does. And by the way, so some of the grooves on this record, it's got all kinds of crazy prog and amazing stuff, but some of the groove sections almost sound like Royal Blood or something like that.
Yeah.
One of those,
one
of those bands.
I do hear that. That's a good show. I was so I listened to it like reluctantly back then, and I really liked it. I was like, wow, these guys are actually really good, but I didn't think much of it, and I kind of forgotten about it a little bit. And then the full album came out last week, and I've been listening to it nonstop. And I can genuinely tell you, this is, I don't know if at some point maybe we'll do like favorite albums of mid-year, because we're coming up on the mid-year. I can honestly say that this is a top 5 favorite album for me for this year. That's how much I love it. I've been listening to it nonstop. I just really, really, and because like I said, like it, to me, it just hits some of the same things that Queens of the Stone Age hit for me, where it's it's groovy, it's heavy, it's got like this irreverent edginess to it. It's just really, really good.
So the record's called Carpe Diem Moon Man. The weird thing about a band like this is like, what kind of a bill would they play on? What kind of festivals would they play on? It just, they could play Louder Than Life, where they mix bands like 311 and Slipknot and all the crazy metal, along with some of the more rock and alternative. But they're a hard band to fit in with anybody.
Yeah. And they
could almost fit in with the jam bands, because there's little bit of,
there is
to them, the way they play.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. It's tough.
Yeah. They've been a band for a while. I think this is their 6th or 7th album, something like that. And I knew nothing about them, so I don't know like if they've played festivals before or if they played with other people. I know so little about this. Is one of the weird albums that I know this album musically inside and out, but I don't know anything about the band themselves. So I might at some point start trying to like go backwards and checking some stuff out too.
They're playing Newport Music Hall on May 17th.
Well, that already happened.
Yeah.
Damn
no,
it.
I just realized that after I said it.
Well, I guess I missed it.
Yeah, I had no idea they were even in the States. They probably should have played the States after the album came out, but what do I know?
Yeah, I probably would have been there.
All right. Last, I do think that it's worth mentioning that Counting Crows have a new record out called Butter Miracle, The Complete Suites. This one was talked about on IndieCast, and Stephen Hyden said that, hey, this is legitimately a pretty good record, despite the horrible album title. And the other part of it is that they released 4 of the songs as an EP and then fleshed it out, added 4 or 5 more songs, and it became a full album. So it was kind of released in 2 phases. So it's a little bit weird it's a non-traditional record at this point. But I've listened to it probably 4 or 5 times over the last week. And I got to admit, it is a pretty good Counting Crows record, a very good late stage Counting Crows record. The question is, does anybody really want that? Does anybody really need that? You know, it's one of those age-old questions for bands that are in their greatest hits eras, and where we saw Pearl Jam kind of get away with it and really lean into dark matter and force the issue on tour. I'm not so sure that Counting Crows have the equity to do that at this stage of their career, and maybe not with this record.
Well, I'll admit I haven't heard this yet. I haven't gotten to it, but I will check it out now that you've given it your stamp of approval. But if they could make me feel something close to what I felt the first time I heard Recovering the Satellites, like, yeah, I'll take a late era return to form Counting Crows. Sure. You know, obviously that's an unrealistic bar to set for them because goddamn, that album is so good. In fact, I might listen to it tonight now that now we're mentioning that. Kind of makes me feel like listening to it. But yeah, I don't know what the expectations are or whatever, but it's funny because this is a band that had fallen completely off my radar. I didn't know anything about this album until they talked about it on IndieCast. And I was like, oh, hey, okay, they got a new album out. So but I will check it out then. Between you and Stephen Hyden, that's a couple pretty good recommendations. So
yeah, but it's totally on a curve. Okay.
Yeah.
So like as a late stage album, it's not going to make you think of Recovering the Satellites or August and everything after, but it's also not going to make you think of the song they did for the Shrek 2 soundtrack or whatever,
Yeah.
Which is a good thing for me.
Yeah. I just think like, I don't remember the last Counting Crows album that I listened to, but after like 2 or 3 in a row that I was just like, this just, I thought I had just reached a point where it's like, okay, they gave me August and they gave me Satellites. Like what they gave me the Live on a Wire, one of my favorite live albums. What else do I need from this band? But if they can deliver something that I would enjoy listening to, even in the context, in the curve of it being late era, I'll give it a shot.
Well, I can tell you the last one I truly enjoyed was Hard Candy from 2002.
Yeah, I definitely listened to that one. There was a Fishbowl one, right?
Yeah.
Something about a fishbowl. I remember listening to that one. And they weren't bad albums, but it was just, I don't know. It just wasn't what I needed from Counting Crows, I guess.
No. And
then I just kind of checked out.
And a lot of hardcore fans would tell you that this Desert Life is their best record. I think it's very good.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that one.
I think it's a very good record. I wouldn't call it my favorite. It was a worthy expansion to the Counting Crows universe, but
yeah,
man, August and Everything After is easily my favorite. Recovering the Satellites was such a departure from that, and I loved it so much, though. Those tours were incredible during Recovering the Satellites. I'll never forget them performing those songs live, just how big they sounded in any room they were in.
This is my favorite thing about you and I. Like, of course, August is your favorite album, and of course, I like Recovering the Satellites more. Like, that's just so you. That's like our dynamic. That's funny. Like Recovering the Satellites.
Hang on a second though, because we'll talk about Recovering the Satellites someday. If Recovering the Satellites was more consistent and didn't have so many dead spots, I would tell you that it probably would be better for me than August and Everything After. There is not a bad song on August and Everything After. There are a couple skippables on Recovering the Satellites for me.
Yeah. You always you really lean into the entry points with bands. Like you love like a really strong debut album. And I always appreciate when they like start to like bleed out of the edges of that a little bit. That always pulls me in a little bit more. But it's just funny how often this comes up when we talk about things, and what our favorite albums are. And I think there's just something to be said for that, like the consistency in how we view music individually, and we both love like each side of it. It's just like which one do you prefer slightly more?
But I can tell you that the vocal section of Recovering the Satellites, the song where he sings "She Sees Shooting Stars," is probably my favorite Counting Crows moment of their entire career. I can nail it down to this one section of this one song is like the greatest of all time.
Yeah. But yeah, Recovering the Satellites was like a transformative album for me. Like it has had such an impact on me at the time that it came out. And like, I feel what I felt.
You just love that A Long December is a Christmas song. It's your favorite Christmas song.
My favorite Christmas song. Yep.
All right. Well, we had a couple other records, but I think we should just skip them. We can maybe come back to them if we feel like we need to talk to them at a later date.
We're at 45 minutes, so I think we can get to the big topic.
Yeah,
I'm not at all jealous about. Yeah. I'm nothing but happy for you.
Yes. I was lucky enough to see the tour finale of the Dark Matter World Tour, Pearl Jam in Pittsburgh on Sunday night. And it was one heck of a special set list for Pearl Jam fans, for casual Pearl Jam fans. They played Crazy Mary. They played Hunger Strike. The band sounded as good as they have in any time I've ever heard them. Eddie's singing voice right now is absolutely at the top of its game. He didn't sound hoarse, tired, anything. It just killed it all night long.
You know what I think it is? I think it's the shorter set lists. I really do. I think, because I remember listening to some of their previous tours.
When did they stop doing back-to-back nights?
This is like their first tour of scaling everything down. And, I remember like you used to listen to like bootlegs, and like, I always remember like having this theory, like you should get the bootlegs earlier in the tour because Ed sounds the best then. And by the end of a tour, his voice would tend to sound pretty fried. And it just felt like the band
that's become a known quantity with the Foo Fighters as well. If you catch Foo Fighters at the end of a tour, it's going to be screamy Dave Grohl. He's just going to scream his way through everything.
Yep. And so I really do think the extra rest days, the shorter set lists that they've been playing, the shorter shows, I think it's like, to bring it back to some sports that you and I love, it was like Donovan Mitchell getting more rest time during the regular season and keeping him fresh later into the year. I mean, we won't talk about how that turned out, but but still, we had a fresher Donovan Mitchell in the playoffs because of that rest. And I think we've got a fresher band, not just Ed. I think it's the band themselves too, because I would listen to some later bootlegs and previous tours, and I would think the band felt like they were going through the motions by the end, that they were just kind of out of gas. And from everything I've heard and seen online, because that's the only way I get to see Pearl Jam these days, since Pearl Jam doesn't want to take my money and let me go to their shows. And not that I'm bitter about it still, but they sound no different late on these last couple dates than they did when they started this tour. And I think that's a pretty cool thing for a band at this age that, you know, there's been plenty of legacy rock bands that you kind of go and you'd see them go through the motions and just play the hits. And it was just, it kind of like a cash machine. And I really, truly believe that, I know we're biased, but I believe that Pearl Jam is still a vital, just incredible live experience to this day. And I think that it's ridiculous that in their 60s, they're still doing it.
Well, and you can tell from the energy on stage that they're enjoying it as much as they ever have. There's a level of just appreciation and celebration that they're outwardly showing towards each other in ways that they're just not going through the motions. This show instantly it went into the running with the one that I saw at Madison Square Garden on 9/11 in 2022 as maybe the best one I've ever seen. Really, really heavy on 10, which was a little bit surprising to me. They opened with Garden. They also played Why Go once, and of course Alive and Even Flow. So
that's a lot. It's a lot of 10.
There was one. Oh, and Deep. They played Deep.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, which is a really rare one these days.
Yeah. But it was great. They played Setting Sun. They kept playing the Dark Matter tunes. Wreckage continues to get better and better live. And I think of all the songs, that and Setting Sun will maintain in the set list forever and ever.
Agreed.
Maybe kind of to the level of like Corduroy. You're not going to get Corduroy every night, but you're going to get it a lot.
Yep, for sure. I think I wouldn't be surprised if Setting Sun becomes a borderline staple. Just they have to recognize how good that song feels live. And I think Wreckage slotting into like a Corduroy type role, I could definitely see that. I'm really curious. I don't actually know. Like, so this was the last show of the Dark Matter tour. Is there a European tour yet, or is this it? So now we're into the great unknown of what's next for Pearl Jam.
Although Eddie said, that they'll be back on stage in a year or two, is what he said.
Okay. Well, that gives them time to record an album.
It certainly does.
Maybe we don't have to wait 5 years this time. Maybe we only have to wait 3 years. Would be pretty cool.
And he's going to do some stuff with the Earthlings.
Yeah, for sure.
But the one downside of being really heavy on 10 material is that it meant a lot less Boom and a lot less Josh Klinghoffer.
Yeah, true. I saw some clips. It was like a couple of these songs where you could tell like Josh really didn't have much to do back there, like maybe like holding a drumstick and just occasionally hitting something is like not a lot for him to do on some of that older material, but that's fine. I'm sure he's like, if he doesn't want that job, I'll take that job.
Yeah. Well, and it was interesting because when they played Hunger Strike, first of all, I think Eddie forgot some of the words, but they
who sang the other part?
Nobody did.
Oh,
the audience sang the other part, but Josh is the only guy on stage who probably could, but I guess they didn't ask him to because nobody really sang it.
Yeah, I was curious.
It was an odd choice.
I intentionally didn't ask you beforehand. I was going to ask you about it on the show, and then I almost forgot to ask. But I was going to ask you too. Like, was it sold out? Like, was the arena full?
Oh yeah, yeah. And it was the kind of thing where every time, and I was experimenting with the Ticketmaster app, seeing like which tickets popped up and how quickly they disappeared. And it was like, if somebody had messed up travel and posted their tickets, they'd post them and they'd be gone within 10 minutes.
Wow. That's awesome.
And so, but there's still I think there are a lot of people who go to the shows and just keep hitting refresh on Ticketmaster and waiting for their chance to grab a couple of tickets for, I think the cheapest tickets I saw on Ticketmaster all weekend were $175 a piece though. So that's just the cost of admission now for Pearl Jam.
It is. Yeah. How was the poster?
I didn't get one. It didn't blow me away, not like the Boston ones did.
Yeah.
But they're all cool in their own way. I just, because of sports, I'm not drawn to Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I get so that.
Any Pittsburgh themed things drop down a few levels, and it's not their fault. It's my own stupidity. Pittsburgh's a wonderful town, by the way.
Yeah, we needed our friend Oliver Barrett to do the poster so he could hide some anti-Pittsburgh or pro-Cleveland stuff somewhere in that poster.
Yeah, and it was weird to see Pearl Jam and have them, make their standard references to Pittsburgh and the Steel City and Franco Harris and okay, all right, yeah, because I think a third of the crowd was from Ohio, Cleveland,
yeah,
because they haven't played Ohio since 2012.
No, they don't play Ohio. Ohio is dead to them. So
not even Toledo.
Nope, nothing.
And then, of course, I sent you the picture that really pissed you off during Faithful. There was a guy in front of me who was trading crypto on Robinhood.
Yeah, these are the people who get in instead of me, who would have loved to. We talked about this before. I put in my bid for my Pittsburgh tickets, and they're just like, nope. We don't want to let you ever go see Pearl Jam. I am so frustrated still about the fact that I've now gone, is it 3 or 4 consecutive lotteries without getting a Pearl Jam ticket? And like, I've been a fan club member since 94, I think. It's just so ridiculous. Yeah. Just an unbelievable stretch of bad luck. And it is what it is. But like, I'm still looking at the set lists every night. Like, I can't quit this band. I love the band. I just don't like their method of giving out tickets to fans.
Yeah. One last thing is that there was a Newsweek headline. I think it was just on their website where it said Eddie Vedder trashes Donald Trump amid President's Bruce Springsteen feud.
Oh.
And that is absolutely categorically false. I just want everybody to know, I think Eddie Vedder has learned a lot about how to talk about things like this with the fan base, because he did talk about Bruce Springsteen. He did support his friend, but he only talked about the freedom of speech and not being afraid to speak your mind, and that being what the country is about. He specifically did not mention the president, didn't use him by name. He just talked about the issue of freedom of speech. And maybe I'm splitting hairs, but this idea that you can write a headline saying Eddie Vedder trashes Donald Trump amid president, like, no, he specifically did not do that. Can you talk about Bruce Springsteen and freedom of speech, knowing that he's feuding with the president and not be accused? Like, do you think I'm crazy? Is that headline just off?
No, because he did a similar thing.
Because if he wanted to trash Donald Trump, he absolutely could have done so.
We saw him do it with George Bush. Like, he did. He's got the capability to do it. When we saw him in Indianapolis, I think he did something very similar. He talked about, just about us losing freedoms and, being mindful of that. And I don't think he referenced the president by name. That he is not a fan of, this president, but I think that they just got to a point where even if you agree with Ed, when he gets too on the point with the politics, it loses some of its power in a way. Like, it just becomes another talking point. And I think it's way more effective when you talk about the issues and not the person.
Well, and I think even people who do like the president and support the president probably do agree with freedom of speech and don't think that anybody should be silenced. Like, these are the things that unite us, you know?
For sure.
And so you can kind of say it without saying it. And I don't know, but I thought, whatever. I mean, obviously Newsweek got the clicks they were looking for.
Yeah. I mean, like news media is gonna news media, you know, that's
right.
In today's day and age, we see this time and time again with, you know, just taking something, putting it a different context on it and making that the headline. We live so much of our lives consuming headlines instead of consuming news, and that's unfortunate, but that's the world we live in.
Yeah. Well, maybe that's the end of the Pearl Jam podcasting for a little bit, unless we decide to dig up an old album.
Yeah, I think it probably will be. I don't think we're probably going to have much to say for a while. So I just closing the chapter on the Dark Matter era is bittersweet. You know, it's I really loved that album. I was glad I did find a way to see them through other means, since again, Pearl Jam didn't want me to go to their show, but I said, screw you. And I found a ticket on SeatGeek and got to go see them. And just, you know, following them live, listening to bootlegs and consuming all the media and the interviews. And like, you know, I think we talked a little bit about the Rick Beato interview last week, but you could just even see in that the camaraderie between Mike McCready and Jeff Ament. Is like, the band is just in such a great place. And so it's a little sad to say goodbye to this era, but I'm also like more excited than I've ever been to see what's next. And we'll
Do you have any trepidation about what's next?
Yeah, there always is a band like this late in their career. Like, you don't know what, but I'm just excited to see, like, whatever it is. I'm sure I'll be along for the ride.
Yeah,
I haven't jumped off yet.
Whatever they did last was pretty good. So why wouldn't we want to see what they do next?
Exactly.
They just I hope they recreate the scenario and the setting, and write it together, hold themselves up and do it together as a big unit again.
And I've heard multiple band members express a hope to do that. You know, Stone specifically has said that. I think Mike has said it. Maybe even Jeff has maybe even said it, but you know, you never know, because ultimately it does kind of come down to what does Ed want to do. We'll see.
Yep. All right. Well, thanks so much for coming on this grab bag of different topics with us. We always appreciate you guys listening and watching on YouTube. albumofrecord.com is where you can keep up with all that we're doing. Just go, it's all free, but go on there, give us your email address. We'll pop up in your inbox as frequently once a week as we possibly can. I think we'll have a couple weeks off this summer here and there, but we've been surprisingly consistent. Andrew, did you ever think we would be this consistent?
I think we've only missed 1 week.
I think we've missed 2.
Well, we had one where we had one pre-recorded.
Okay.
Then we did have the week that we re-released the Dark Matter review. Yeah. But still, that's over.
Not bad. Over a year.
A year. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks so much for listening. We'll talk to you next time. It's been the Album of Record podcast.